I've had friends tell me these are the best ribs they've ever had in their life, and they swore by it. I'm starting to think they don't get out much. Welcome back to Casiano Travels, home of the family that lives by car and plane. When you think of Memphis, you think of barbecue. So I'm here at Charlie Vergos Rendezvous, charcoal ribs. This is arguably the most famous ribs joint in Memphis and one of the most famous barbecue places in Memphis. Is it worth it? Let's go in and have a taste. All right, we're back, and we got our ribs. Now, I've heard these are the best in Memphis by many people, and I've had some of the most famous barbecue places in Memphis. Jim Neely's, Corky's, and Central Barbecue all come to mind alongside Charlie Vergos Rendezvous when you think of the best in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, we've done a review on Central Barbecue via Goldbelly, which you can watch right here. As you've probably noticed, Christine and Cash are not with me yet again. I'm about to complete my 2-week Southeast tour. I was down here for some work travel and decided to bring my camera and just shoot some of the best restaurants across the Southeast and review them for you guys and let you know if they're good or not and is it worth stopping by and making a trip out of. I hope you enjoyed them so far. This is the final one on the series, and then we're going to be going back to the good old-fashioned Goldbelly reviews. So before we get into the story of Charlie Vergos Rendezvous, I wanted to first apologize for the poor lighting. Unfortunately, the sun goes down at about 5:30 to 6, and so I'm having to use my iPhone as lighting along with the car lights above my head. Not ideal. So one thing that stands out about Charlie Vergos Rendezvous is it's not in a super nice building. It's in downtown Memphis, across the street, right behind the Peabody Hotel, in a basement in a small alleyway. They started this restaurant in 1948, so we're going on over 70 years, and not much has changed. In 1948, when Charlie Vergo opened his restaurant, he owned it with his brother-in-law, but they didn't exactly see eye to eye on everything. So Charlie decided to move into this basement that they are currently still in and sell ham sandwiches and beer. Everybody's favorite, right? There was an old coal chute that Charlie would use to give a little flavor to his ham. And since they were downtown and the boom of the city hit around that same time, people would come enjoy some of his ham sandwiches and beer after they got off work. Now this ended up being a very successful business model until the late 50s, when he then realized he needed to diversify his menu a little bit to keep the business growing and to keep people coming in. So he actually tried his hand at chicken and oysters to no success. When one day his butcher came in with ribs, which back then ribs were considered scrap meat and nobody wanted them. Now ribs were big in backyard barbecues at the time, but no restaurants wanted to touch them until Charlie got a hold of them. So he used the old coal chute to smoke some ribs. He'd wash them with a vinegar base and use his famous dry seasoning, and voila, we had the famous ribs from Charlie Vergos Rendezvous. Now Mr. Charlie has passed away, but his children and their extended families has continued the family name and kept this thing running and to fame. So one thing you'll notice with the rib platter that I got today was it comes standard with a vinegar mustard coleslaw and beans. Now I'm not a huge fan of those typically, but I wanted to get what they recommend and I didn't want to switch it up too much, so I left it the exact same. It came with 2 rolls and a side of sauce, and I think I'm about ready to dive in. So I'm a big barbecue guy, and I'm a very big rib guy. And I've had ribs from everywhere from Texas barbecue to Kansas City to St. Louis to Memphis to the Carolinas and everywhere in between. I have my hand-picked few favorite spots, and I'm gonna compare these ribs today to some of my favorites that I know are 9s. So we'll see just how good these are today. Let's dive in. All right, so here we go. We got our first rib. It's got a little bit of some char on top. You can tell that the fat has rendered down just a little bit. You see the signature dry rub on the sides and on the top. Right off the bat, you taste the coal. You can very easily taste the vinegar that was mopped on top, and you can taste the dry seasoning. Now, it's not fall off the bone, and that is generally how I like my ribs. So that knocks it down just a few pegs. I'm gonna go in for another bite here. I'll be honest, it's not that good. I've had friends tell me these are the best ribs they've ever had in their life, and they swore by it. I'm starting to think they don't get out much. I mean this with no disrespect, but my next door neighbor has smoked better ribs than this. They're not moist, they're pretty tough and chewy, and they're not fall off the bone. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I'm not impressed. I think words speak for itself when I say I would rather go to Chili's and get baby back ribs for $9.99. Yeah, maybe the sauce will help a little bit. I'm generally not just a big fan of Memphis barbecue as a whole. I'm not a dry seasonings guy. The sauce makes it better. It's definitely full of vinegar, that's for sure. Very mediocre rib. The bread, I mean, this looks like this came in a 12-pack from the supermarket. They're not warm, they're very actually room temperature. That's a grocery store roll. All right, the last saving grace is gonna be the beans and the slaw. The beans are actually really good. It's got some shredded pork in there. It's got their signature sauce with a heaping dose of vinegar. Those are not bad. Those are above average. Now for their mustard vinegar-based coleslaw. Everything's got vinegar. Vinegar, vinegar, vinegar. Not a big fan of mustard slaw in my limited experience in the past, but we'll give this a go. Very mustardy, very vinegary, not great. Okay guys, so we always judge these reviews based on the looks and the taste. The looks wasn't great, it looked okay. Like I mentioned, they did a pretty good job of covering it in seasoning. Beans are beans, and yellow slaw is yellow slaw. So, not much to say on those two sides. The rolls looked like something you get on Thanksgiving for that friend that always puts off shopping to the last minute and just runs and grabs whatever rolls he can find in the supermarket. So overall, not great looking. Taste, probably bottom 5 ribs I've ever had. And that's kind of crazy to think about because I've had, if I were to guess, 500 barbecue restaurants in my life, spanning all across the country in the hottest barbecue cities in America. To say bottom 5 really, really surprises me. Again, I've had so many friends tell me that these were the best they've ever had. So I don't know if I caught them on an off day, or maybe it has to do with the fact that I'm eating in my car. Maybe the ambiance helps a little bit. I'm not really sure. But the fact that they weren't moist, they weren't tender, they weren't fall off the bone, they didn't have really an overwhelming smoke or coal taste, which you would think they would since they're charcoal ribs. There just wasn't anything special about them. So with all that said, I have to give this a 3.9. 3.9 out of 10, and I'm not proud to say it, but guys, we do these reviews honestly and openly. I'm not gonna lie to you. I want you guys to know what you're getting into. If you ever find yourself in one of these cities, I hope you see my review and you think, you know what, MJ was right. Thanks as always for watching. We really appreciate it. As I mentioned, I'm finally done with my Southeast tour and I'm headed home to go see Christine and Cash. I can't wait to see them. We have a couple Gold Belly reviews coming your way very, very soon, and a pretty big surprise too on one of our next food review videos. So stay on the lookout for that, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.